When you think of frustrating anime, the first thing that usually comes to mind are romantic comedies, such as Rent a Girlfriend or A Couple of Cuckoos, where you grow tired of the main character's escapades or lack of progress in romantic relationships with the main girls. You don't usually think of Isekai anime as the frustrating type, especially given how many of them are wish fulfillment power fantasies. However, a recent anime has come out that challenges this notion, and that anime is My Unique Skill Makes Me OP Even at Level 1, or 1 for short. So what makes this isekai, that even the anime zone himself is not watching, the most frustrating? To start with, everything the main character does is covered in a veneer of self-righteousness, as if everything that Ryota does is entirely correct at all times, even if he does make lots of stupid decisions, such as giving an item which doubles the holder's item drops to Emily Brown, who has F-ranked loot drops, rather than doubling his own S-ranked drop chances, and thus dramatically slow down their item grind considerably, which of course makes them poorer in the long run, but hey, it is a bracelet, and we all know only women can wear those. Additionally, Ryota grinds out the strength and health drops early on in the series, which makes him the world's strongest after a few episodes. That being said, the author, knowing that they had written themselves into a corner, decided to give Ryota a gun and have him use that rather than his insane strength. From a story's perspective, I can understand this. I mean, who needs consistent power scaling
when you have a gun?
Some of the things he uses the guns for are interesting, such as the healing bullets, which will never not be funny, with him shooting his allies in the face to heal them. But the problem remains that he is still at the pinnacle of his strength, so guns are actually a step down in combat unless he is fighting against ranged foes. This is something the anime does recognise in episode 7, but he carries on using guns for the most mundane tasks after this, as if the realisation of him being stronger than the guns he uses never happened. This aspect of the main character making stupid decisions extends to the other factors of the story, as in episode 6 a group of adventurers called the Aldeburgh Group go on strike and prevent other adventurers from going to the 6th floor and above. The in-universe reason for the strike, as spelt out to the viewer, is that the 6th floor and above is incredibly dangerous, and the adventurers are not getting paid enough to make the risk worth it. In other anime, the hero would negotiate with the strikers and help resolve their differences along with keeping the dungeon's higher floors open. Nonetheless, 1 is not like other anime. In this world, the guild sends an executioner squad to murder the striking adventurers, and the way the main character prevents their murder and resolves the work dispute is by the hero beating up the Aldeburgh Group before the executioners could get to them, because this is how the show resolves worker issues. Speaking about workers' rights, let's talk about accommodation. Similar to our world, in the fantasy town of Serco, housing is expensive, with there being characters sleeping outside so they cannot afford the basic cost of renting an apartment. This is layered on heavily, with the anime's first episode focusing around Ryota finding a home to live in with Emily Brown, who, in the second half of the episode, breaks down crying as she finally has a place to live in. On its own, this is quite a good plot point, as rarely do isekai have one of the main characters start off homeless, as usually they just crash at an inn, or residence with there being no thought of how they can afford it. And the idea that the author spent time to realise that a character like Emily would be homeless shows that they do have an idea of how their isekai world would work. So what makes this frustrating? Well, as you are aware, when you start earning more money and moving up in the wealth hierarchy, you tend to move out of your previous cheaper house and move up to a larger house with better amenities. And this anime is no exception, with Ryota and Emily moving up to a bigger house in episode 3. What makes this frustrating is they keep their previous house for the memories. There is still a homelessness problem, unless Emily was the only homeless person in Serco, which I doubt. So they've just permanently removed a nice cheap starter house for adventurers, just so they can have their memories. It is like they'd completely forgotten the entire reason Ryota and Emily shared a house to begin with. It just comes across as completely out of touch with reality, further infuriating with the watcher, as they could have simply rented out the house, with a sweet line like, "I hope the next residents have as much enjoyment here as we did," rather than help exacerbate a homelessness problem that they are fully aware of. A final thing to mention is the start of each episode, as unlike in other series where the opening scene is usually a flashback to the previous episode, which refreshes the viewer about the events that had just occurred, allowing for weekly viewers to pick up the anime directly where they left off. Whereas, in this series, it starts you with a flash forward of everything that will happen in the episode, removing any aspect that may surprise you, along with separating the series out into distinct episodes, that each seem like their own distinct entity, rather than having the episodes flow together smoothly. Which is frustrating when you're watching it, because you don't want a seamlessly pointless TikTok summary of the episode before you watch the damn episode. I mean, why bother watching the anime when the first minute sums up the entire episode for you? This, combined with the annoying actions the main character does, that are listed as good things, makes 1. The most frustrating Isekai anime airing, and an anime to avoid if you don't like frustration.